Okay, so this is quite the wild story here, the wild tale here that I'm exposing here. I didn't, I haven't really exposed it in this manner before. This was the most debilitating and challenging and difficult and painful and just beyond. There's no pain, okay, in my sharing this now. And I've completely come to 1,000% clarity, understanding, wisdom, epiphany, awareness in all senses of the project of what it was. I knew innately from the very beginning what it was, but I didn't know how it was going to play out. It's like I was only aware of the I was aware of the what. I just didn't understand the how and the why per se. Just what the what was. I knew that this work was an ascension of a soul. It was a movement of this artist and myself being in a collaborative experience that was to exhume and inclusively bring about the nature's nature, true nature of humanity, of our divinity, of our planetary, of humankind in general. It sounds very crazy that I'm saying what does all that mean, Kara? Well, as I said in my previous videos, I just wanted to explore the nature of humanity and what makes people want to do good things and good things for other people, and what makes them not want to support people who are doing good things, that I know will help people, that will change the world, that will help create a better future for tomorrow, will help harmonize with the planet and all these things. And it just didn't make sense to me because I was so committed to people in my own self. I didn't understand how the people couldn't do the same and put themselves into this dynamic because of, I seem to be an interesting, support unit of energy, of power of energy, that this power within me could not be contained. And the movie Phenomenon was the closest that spot on to my energy that I felt that resonated with this energy that had gotten downloaded within me. As I say, got lit. If you watch the Phenomenon movie with John Travolta, when he got smacked for this blue beam of light that came into his head on his 40th birthday, and then all of a sudden all this wisdom and content and information started coming in, and he had all these answers and these inventions that would pop up, and he knew how to compartmentalize certain things, and he would read books and he'd all this information come in, and yet no one knew what to do with all this. That's really what happened to me. And now I'm connected to beautiful souls who are doing this amazing work, and I'm like, why is it not getting exposed? Why is it not being heard? Why is it not being? And so my whole thing at that point was just to support it in any way I could. And to date, I hadn't put I supported myself, but I hadn't actually sponsored or put in my resources and my funds to the actual other person until this guided art project. It became something I had to invest in. And I was hoping, I guess, that I assumed her had no concern that since it seemed to be the work of heaven or God or source or your creation itself or the universal message, that somehow we would be taken care of and provided for in some kind of reciprocity at the end of its incarnations and manifestations. So, but we needed to at least go with the flow of it as long as possible. And as the last 2 years, when Rob was rolled into the purpose, snatched away in July of 2017, because he was taken, his services of vacuum and stuff were needed by his family to go back into that business. It was the timing was perfect, to allow me to process it. So that's what I did. I was processing it for the last 2 years, year and a half, almost 22 months now. And I started docking. It took me 4 months. I went into a deep depression for four months because I needed to. It's like I got hit by a Mack truck when the project ended. When the separation of now Rob goes back into his world of sales, while I'm left with this investment that I put into of 60,000, and 200 pieces in my home that I don't know what to do with, but I will eventually. I knew I wasn't insecure about the knowingness that how it would come into some kind of presentation, that it would come. I had no doubt that it would happen. I just needed to be ready for it, and I needed to process and heal past the experience first. And I didn't realize it was going to be that debilitating, and it became that. And I was, it's like, they called it the Titanic experience, because I was, the two of us were on the Titanic. The ship had been sinking financially and emotionally and spiritually and psychologically for 7 solid months, actually longer than that, probably more like 9 months, for 9 months. And until we, the split occurred, where he went off and back into his world, and I was left with the aftermath of the shipwreck, because I was financially debilitated 9 months before, and yet, we were both committed and connected to the work, and there was nothing that either one of us could do to separate at that point, because the commitment was already there. We couldn't pull out. It was like point of no return. We had to both go in there, and we were both nearly homeless. We didn't have we had a roof over our head, but we didn't have any security, stability. I had no more financial resources available. I'd spent them all. I was destitute. Okay. And I had to go to a food bank just to feed us, because Rob was still working on the art and creating the work, and he can't do both. He can't do regular work and this work either. So I became the benefactor, and I went and did work to provide for us. And he would sell whatever he could, of his personal belongings, just to keep the journey going, so it wasn't too much of a burden. But the intensity of and the frustration of not knowing how to put it out there, that became the burden. That energy of the not knowing what to do after the fact, it became a hindrance to the journey, and it was very understandable, because we just wanted, you say instant gratification, instant reciprocity, and it's like, our persons and our roles that we're playing had to get out of the way first before that could happen. And we didn't understand why it took so long, and it's like, we weren't done yet. It was month to month to month to month. And it's like, how about now? Can we start doing it with something with it now? It's like, no, you're not done yet. You still have to create more work, more art. And 9 months went by before the work was finally completed. And then, like I said, the Transcendent Angel painting got done. Then I knew it was done. And that's when, the shipwreck went down. That's when our ship that was already on fumes, and I mean the ship of our space, okay, and our connection together, it sunk. It couldn't hold any more water at that point. There was too many holes in it, and I'm using this metaphorically speaking, but it's in every sense of the word. We just couldn't take it anymore, and I considered it like a Titanic, where we were, that it just kind of went down, and as it sunk to the bottom, I was left holding, hanging on. He was left holding. I was left hanging on the door, and then he was, on top of the door, so he was rescued, and I had to sink all the way to the bottom of the experience, in order to have it illuminated and its truth revealed. So that's what 2017 was all about. Okay, and Rob had to completely submerge into his work, while I had to completely submerge into the aftermath and into the process to finally do my part. Because my part was now, it's like, I say these term things, but it's like Rob was the birther of the work. He carried it to term. I was the provider. Okay, it's considered the art like his child, or like people, artists call their works of art like their children. Their creations, it's their manifestation of their essence, and I know, as Rob went off to go, take care of, finances on his own there, for his own way, and I was left with the works to nurture it, and I was left to my own devices, and Rob couldn't participate and assist me in any way, shape, or form, because it was a totally different dimension. He was in a totally different world again. He went back to his old world, and I was not part of that world. I was in a totally different dimension. It was like he went back to AM radio, and I was in FM radio, kind of thing. And that's just the only way to describe it. And so I became squelch. I became squelch to to where he was. He couldn't hear a word I said, and I was continuing to heal, to process, to because it was the experience was decimating, energetically, financially, emotionally, spiritually, because we were both so frustrated with why the experience happened the way it was, and why it was an adversarial type of dynamic to produce it, because we were fighting old programming, old relationship paradigms, old dynamics of restrictive conditioning from the outside world, from all we had known. And it was the frustration of not knowing what to do this, and why are we doing this when we know there's is there a market for this? We don't. It's like, we shouldn't even have thought about that. We should have just worked on and focused, but we didn't know, because it became something where it wasn't a return on investment. It wasn't that type of thing. And I wanted the work to be honored and to be seen and to be exposed and shown in its fullest light. That's all I cared about. It wasn't about like, oh, I'm not going to sell it because I'm going to hold it back. And I wanted the whole world to. I want every living soul to know the art. I'm not restricting anything, but it has to be in full integrity. It has to be in full, the highest, expression. When we had the very first art show in 2015, around Rob's birthday, he was going to, do it on his own way, because he wanted just to show it and then have an open house. And it's like, I had $800 left to my name. And it was like, when I knew he was trying to put an art show together, and I was like, well, can we wait a month or two, so when I can actually raise some funds for it and do it right. It's like, he's like, I got to do it now. I got to do it. I just want to have it. I wanted to, I had to put the rest of my funds into it, because the art show had to be exposed that weekend of his birthday. It was really important. And so because I'm committed to the work, it's like, I have no choice, so to speak. It's almost like I have no choice, but to, that was my job, was to be the benefactor for it. So I had to put the remaining balance of resources into it so that it could be exposed in the highest possible light. And it was very, very well done. And because the extra resources were put into it to illuminate, expose it in the best way possible, because that was my job to do, was to make sure that it got out, it got exposed, and it got illuminated in its highest light. So that's all I care about. It's not about, I'm not restricting anything, I'm not holding it hostage. I purchased it, and I was its caretaker for $60,000 over the last 6 years, and all I cared about was exposing it. And for 13 solid months, I did everything in my power to expose it on Facebook, on the guided art page. I kept putting, updating the page to make sure people knew that the art was still there. I'd create a video series documenting it, 9 months later, and I exposed that on the art. And nobody, I got 100 new likes to the page, I couldn't sell the art myself because it was too much work. I didn't have that I was trying to support myself, and I couldn't function and do all that stuff. It was, it was a lot more. I needed help. I didn't have anyone helping me to create, websites and all that stuff. I just didn't have the means to do that. So I couldn't do it other than just whatever my free availability was. And I created these art videos to show it in the best way I can. And I didn't even do that on my own. It was like I was guided to do it. It was exhaustive and it was debilitating to even do the art videos, but I was guided to do it, and I became my own guided artist, and creating these write-ups and these posts and interpretations of the work, and then creating music videos to the art to tell the story became my guided art experience myself. And I created my own notes in video format, just like Rob did in his sketches. And then my videos that I created became the guided art itself. And it's like I was almost following in his footsteps. So it was a fascinating dynamic, but it was the only way I could expose it the only way I could with my own. I had no resources. My my vaults were bare. Okay. And Rob was in another dimension. So I had to just do it on my own as best I could. And I couldn't sell it at all. I wanted to, just to survive. But I wasn't the artist, and I wasn't allowed to sell any art that wasn't my own, and I had no bill of sale, so there wasn't any gallery or anyone I could, short of putting it, on eBay or something, and that's not the best light for it. It needs to be done in a way that's, grand, and just sell it at a swap meet, kind of thing. So, this is the thing I wanted to make sure so I put it, I put it in my archive in my basement just till the artist could return, and the artist has returned. And as I go into this darkness, you know, more illumination is coming forward, and now the art is time to be illuminated, and this is why we're here.